I want to talk today about which iPhone you should buy in 2021. I've talked a lot about iPhones on this channel and the videos do very well. So I wanted to talk about which ones you should buy because I normally just tell you not to buy them on payment plans. But I got some notes written down here in my little journal and we are going to discuss which are the best ones to buy. So I'm going to break this up into two different categories. One of them is used and one of them is new. I like to buy my phones new. I've bought them used in the past, but I just find it's a little bit easier to buy them new. I don't have to worry about where this phone has been, if you understand what I'm saying. And I definitely don't have to worry about if it was stolen, if the IMEI is bad, if it hasn't been paid off, stuff like that. So I'm going to go over the phones that if you do decide to buy used, which one you should buy, and the ones that if you decide to buy new, which ones you should buy. So we're gonna start with the used. I have three different categories here. One of them is pretty expensive, one of them is medium expensive, and one of them is pretty cheap, especially for a phone. So we're gonna start with the cheap category, and that would be the iPhone SE2 for $250. Now you could go in this category for a lot cheaper, like an iPhone 8, 8 Plus, the original iPhone SE. But I think that when you go so old, you're gonna be losing support within a year, maybe 2 years, but probably more than likely you'll have support for about another year. And I just don't think it's worth it to invest this kind of money in a product that's going to be not having support in like a year. And I want my phone to have the latest software updates and the latest security patches. I'm not trying to run a phone that doesn't support the latest software just because hackers and bad people are always trying to steal data from you. And that's going to lead us into today's sponsor, one of the VPNs. No, but I'm just joking. So I would say iPhone SE2, they go for around $250 used on Swappa. And I think at that price point, that's a really solid phone. That's just a few years old at this point now. Still gonna have support for a very long time. Still's got a great processor inside of it. And the one knock against that phone is that it doesn't have Face ID. For me, I like having Face ID. It's definitely not a necessity. I've enjoyed having it more than I liked having the thumbprint, but it's not a necessity for sure. But if you want one with Face ID, you obviously can't get the iPhone SE2. So that would be my one knock against it, but the price is really good at $250. But I think the next phone is the phone that I would probably tell everyone to buy, and that would be the iPhone XR, and that's $300. The knock against this phone though is that it's now 2 cycles old. So it didn't come out last year, but it came out the year before that. So you probably have another 2 to 3 years of software updates. You can get this phone, the iPhone XR, XR, used for about $300 on Swappa. I only would buy a used phone on Swappa. I wouldn't buy one on Facebook Marketplace, which is where I tell you to buy everything else. But Swappa is probably the best place to buy an iPhone because they do an IMEI check, and it's probably just the best place, the safest place to buy a used iPhone. So you can get an iPhone XR for around $300 used on Swappa. And I think that that's a really solid price for a phone that's just 2 years old and still gonna be getting support for a few years. And obviously $300, iPhone, kind of a no-brainer, and it has Face ID. I think that's sort of like the money phone if you wanted to spend around $300-400. That's the best phone to get. That might just be the best phone in general to get because what you pay in additional money for the other two phones I'm going to talk about, you don't really gain any features. You just have basically a bigger screen and a slightly better screen. The next one I would suggest would be a XS Max, and those go for roughly $375, which is pretty remarkable because you would think that the iPhone XR would be significantly cheaper than the XS Max, which came out the exact same year as the XR, and came out at a price tag that was almost double at the same time. But it's only $375 used. That's about what you can find them for, maybe like $400. So it's still a really good phone. I just don't think the additional $100 at this point to pay 25% more money than the iPhone XR is really worth it. I get maybe wanting the bigger phone and maybe the nicer looking phone, but what you gain in bigger screen and cameras, I think isn't really worth 25% premium on the phone. But if you do want like the extra premium features, I would say go with the XS Max, but I would probably tell you to stick with the iPhone XR. And then the final one is the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and that's $630. This is the most expensive phone I would buy used. This phone is just 1 year old. It's got basically all the bells and whistles that the latest phones have, except for the magnets on the back, which is such a weird feature. But it's obviously an amazing phone. It's 1 year old now. It's lost almost 50% of its value, about 40%. That's a lesson to be learned here, is that phones drop a lot in value, but certain ones drop less in value in terms of percentages. So just keep that in mind when you are purchasing phones, that these things drop like rocks in terms of percentages. So I would probably tell you to go with an iPhone 11 Pro Max if you wanted a more expensive phone, like the $500-600 range. But I probably would just say if you're gonna buy an iPhone used, I just say get an iPhone XR, $300. You could put the extra money that you're saving into maybe a battery replacement. Just give it to Apple, let them replace it, and then you have basically a brand new phone that Apple still charges $499 for in the store, and you'll get the whole setup with the battery replacement for around $350. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer, but that's obviously just my opinion. And then the next category is new phones. So in the new phones, it's kind of obvious the three phones I'm going to pick here. If you know anything about iPhones, then you'll know, but if you don't, then this might be a good learning experience for you. The phone that I recently purchased was an iPhone 11, and that's the phone I'm going to tell you to buy new, and it's literally just because I bought it, I want to justify it. But I do think that at the price point of $600, it's on the highest end tier of what you should spend on a phone brand new. But you could see clear as day from the iPhone XR that they don't drop in value nearly as much in terms of percentages and also in terms of dollars because it's a lot cheaper of a phone. So if a $1,000 phone drops 50%, you lose $500. If a $600 phone drops 50%, you lose $300. I think that the iPhone 11, just at a year old at this point, and at only $600 for a brand new iPhone that's 1 year old, that's got the face unlock, it's got like basically all the bells and whistles. I think that that's kind of a no-brainer. If you wanted to spend that kind of money, I wanted the extra year of support. I thought that the extra $100 to get the extra year of support was definitely worth it for me, and I wanted Face ID, so it was between the iPhone 11 and iPhone XR for me, and I ended up going with the iPhone 11. I think that's a smarter phone to choose, but if you can't afford it, then I would probably just go with the iPhone XR. You want to get a phone new. Those are tough to find. Trust me, I went to several stores to go get one, and they didn't have any of them in stock. It was either that one or the iPhone 11. I kind of just needed either one. You could watch the video, and I'll explain a little bit more in detail on that one. The next phone I would suggest buying is the iPhone SE2, $399. Again, cheapest phone that Apple offers at the moment. I doubt that they're going to be offering this for very much longer. $299. I mean, you get what you pay for. It's not the world's greatest phone, but it's a good phone, and it's an iPhone, so it supports all the iPhone features except for Face ID. That's really the only knock against it. It's just you're already paying $400 for this phone. I think your money would just be better spent throwing in maybe an additional $100. I think your money would probably be spent a little bit better if you threw on an extra $100 and got a XR, because they're gonna have the same lifetime of support, but the features you gain from the iPhone SE2 to the XR, I think are worth the $100 to me. You have to determine if it's worth $100 for you. And then obviously the final one would be to purchase an iPhone XR, $499. New phones are tough. I think that if you're buying new, you have to understand you're going to be paying a premium for the phone. And I think that if I'm buying new and I have the choice between a phone that has kind of lackluster features for what I wanted my phone to have for $200 less, and then a phone that's a year older for only just $100 less, I think for me it was worth it to pay $600. I might be in a different financial situation for you where $600 is a ton of money or $600 is no money. So you have to determine what fits best for you. But I talked about all these phones in terms of full price because that's how you should be looking at these phones. You shouldn't be going to the store and looking at the payment plans because that's how Apple sells it on their website. That's how T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon, AT&T, that's how all of these companies sell you their phones. They sell you the phones based on a month-to-month plan, not the full price. So the full price is obviously far more intimidating because it's a lot more money, but that's how you should be thinking about these phones. That's why I didn't bring up any phone that's over $650 because I think at that point you're spending just far too much money. Obviously, this is from my perspective, and this is from what I do and how I spend my money and how much money I make and how comfortable I am spending a certain amount of money on a phone. If you want to spend more money, I would say that you probably don't need to, depending on your financial situation. If you make $250,000 a year, you're probably okay. If you make that like $30,000 to $60,000 a year, I just don't think you need anything more than a $600 phone. I think that that's complete nonsense to spend more than that. And even if you made more, I get it that it's not that much money to you, but I do still think you're not getting the real value out of the phone that the price tag would indicate. So that's my opinion on what phone you should buy in 2021. If you want a quick rundown, I would say you're buying used, buy an iPhone XR or an iPhone XS Max. Those I think are the two best phones you could buy. I'd probably lean iPhone XR if you're buying it used. And if you're buying it new, I would buy an iPhone 11. Obviously, double the price with a new iPhone 11, but you get the phone new. You get one extra year of support, and you get the peace of mind knowing that nobody did inappropriate things with the phone. And that's kind of the thing that creeps me out the most about used phones. Everything else, like computers and all that stuff, I can get over. I can clean those well. And like, you can only do so many gross things with a piece of tech, but a phone goes everywhere with you, and I just don't like the idea of that. Obviously, there are much cheaper phones you could get than what I listed out here, but this is just what I thought was the best value. It's not always about spending the least amount of money. You don't want to just constantly go through life spending $0 or $10 on things that you desperately need. Phones at this point in our lives are pretty important. I know for my job it's important. For other people's jobs it's important. Just for their quality of life it's important. So don't be afraid to spend a few extra dollars if the value is there, but you just have to determine that for yourself. Are you just waffling between a $1,200 phone and a $1,000 phone? And if you're waffling between those expensive of phones, I think you probably already watching this video. So thank you guys for watching the video. I will see you in the next one. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. Which phone do you think is the best phone to buy in 2021? And I will see you in the next one. Peace out.